to approve? We have a motion and a second. Mr. Undershoots will present.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's been a lot of public support for teleconferencing into, board meetings. And for transparency reasons, I think it's a really good idea. There's no real reason that we should attempt to hold the public up. The technology's there and it's easier to use than you think. And I know Bugs can attest to it's pretty easy to set up. And at my age, I know that I'm one of the younger ones on the board, but people really utilize this technology to conference into things and see what's going on. And for people that work, I think it's really good to allow that access into the meetings, and not just for county board members, but the resolution states for the public as well. I think I put in the language of the policy itself that the expectation would be for a board member to attend in person, but we can understand there's circumstances where that might not be feasible. I think I could have done a little better job of the language of the committee versus the county board. I think the intent would be on passage of this resolution, we should allow teleconference into as many meetings as we can. Understandably, if somebody's on a field trip somewhere and there's not Wi-Fi, that, you know, we wouldn't necessarily need teleconferencing into that, but I think it's really important for transparency, to allow people access to meetings if they can't come here and attend every single meeting in person.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose an amendment along the lines of what Mr. Undershoots has provided, and I think he did a really good job for the most part. Talked to him before the meeting, and under procedure 3D, it sort of provides a kind of a loophole at the end, which says, at the discretion of the committee board chair or majority vote of the committee to, in essence, not have public access. I don't think that was the intention. I think it was to allow for the possibility that, as he said, the zoning committee goes to site visits when we're looking at making approvals. The forestry committee travels around the county sometimes. So does the highway committee, and they might not be able to have virtual access for the public, but for the most part. So I would move to amend procedure 3D to strike everything after the word access in the third line. So it would say for both public access and county board member access, period. And everything after that line under D would be deleted.
Second to that. Any more discussion? Mr. Pluto?
This is premature, I guess, because I wanted to talk about a different bullet on this.
Pardon?
I wanted to talk about a different bullet, so
Okay.
I'll wait. I've had a lot of people talk to me in the public, and almost everyone I've talked, I think almost actually everyone I've talked to has been for this. It's something that, maybe takeaway wasn't the worst thing for a short term, but I think it helped people realize how valuable a tool it is. Often you don't see the impact it has because they're anonymous online, which sometimes can be a bad thing, but we don't realize that the value it does provide to the public. And I think we've heard from a lot of people over the past few months that it does provide a value and a service to the public.
So before we get back into the main resolution, unless it's specifically on this amendment, we have a motion to amend that, revises the policy to remove the highlighted portion. Correct? Yeah. So, on the amendment, unless somebody has a comment or concern, just the amendment, then we'll go back to the resolution as amended.
You're Randy. No, yeah, 6 no. Passed by majority vote.
So now you're back to this.
Now we gotta vote on,
No, I think somebody had wanted to make another amendment maybe.
Mr. Kudo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under number 3, E. This is the meeting chairperson and the county clerk shall ensure that the equipment necessary to conduct such meeting is in place prior to commencement. Why would this, I guess I'm just curious as to why this should fall on the committee chairperson or the county clerk, because wouldn't this equipment actually be more of an IT function? And I believe that IT should be here to make sure. So my recommendation basically would be to change the wording there to saying that an IT person will ensure that the equipment necessary to conduct such meeting is in place.
Is there a second to that?
Well,
Yeah, I'm getting it.
Huh?
future amendment.
Oh.
Oh, Mr. Whitman had it. Okay, heard, Mr. Snyder.
We do have some department heads that are very capable of doing this. This Phil is not, that Phil probably is to run this stuff. I'm wondering if we can put, IT or department head or their designee. Because if the department head can do it, there's no reason to pull IT down here. Nick, for one, is rather positively, you know, and a few others I think probably could, but
I guess basically, I mean, what I was getting at was actually, I mean, more or less that if the county clerk is here for a meeting, and then like Jill would be in another meeting, who's gonna be in the clerk's office?
well, I agree, yeah. I agree both those positions gotta be altered.
So, I mean, I agree with you, I mean, yeah, maybe we could broaden that out slightly, like you said. It wouldn't necessarily have to be an IT person, but I wouldn't wanna narrow it down to the county clerk or the chairperson. So what, do you wanna say what you're amending?
I said, IT or the department chair or his designee, because he might have somebody on it, or he or she might have somebody on their staff who could do it. And we aren't gonna tie IT up all the time if we don't need to. Department head or their designee along with IT.
I would agree with that.
Okay, so hold on, let's get this amendment straight. The ID department and the department or.
And or.
And or, yeah. Department. Or designee.
So this was, Mr. Kudo's, amendment, seconded by Mr. Willingham, correct?
Yes.
With those
Yep.
enhancements.
So any other discussions on this, second amendment?
Mr. Wedwick,
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I guess I had the same concerns about the meeting chairman and running and having someone, I mean, I'm in favor of full transparency and especially for the county board meeting. But for every committee meeting, you're going to have somebody who's going to have to be able to run just the IT portion, if you will. And if you're pulling other people away from their duties to do this, either that or you're going to have to train every committee chairman in how to run that. And, you know, some of the rooms that we've met in and everything do not have video at this point. So is it just gonna be audio? We can't expect the county clerk and assistant to be that because we have meetings going on simultaneously and they can't be split among all of that at the same time. So I guess my question is, who's actually going to be doing this? And if I know you've got amendment in here, but the meeting chairperson, they're gonna have to be trained in that too. And then, you know, to monitor, and are you allowing the public to make comments during the meeting? Or are they just gonna be able to watch it?
That's under G.
That part's addressed, it says no public comment. So,
Unless
so they
previously-
can't make comments on the teleconferencing, thing, that way we don't run into any issues.
But I thought that G, no public comment, was in the beginning of your meeting, are there any public comments? I thought that referred to that,
Well, wouldn't
not
wouldn't the
during
type comment be a
during the
public-
meeting.
Wouldn't the typed comment be a public comment too?
Oh, what?
If somebody typed a comment, that would be a public comment as well, right?
Yeah, or spoken.
So, I mean, it just says no public comment is allowed for teleconferencing.
So most of this electronic meeting policy only refers to county board members. There's only one or two instances in there that refer to the public.
I mean, if we wanna put it in every line, we could. I'm all
No,
for
but
it.
I'm just saying that, and again, I'm in full, that's for at least the county board. But I'm thinking, you've gotta think about how are you going to do that for every committee meeting? I have no objection to that, but you've got staff
I
problems.
believe we have Wi-Fi in the whole courthouse here. Bugs would agree. We have Wi-Fi in the whole courthouse here.
But somebody's going to have to run that.
Right. So,
Somebody say it.
we're suggesting now IT person or department head or chair. I mean, that way we broaden it a little bit.
So then it's gonna have to be trained.
I
are you
mean,
talking committee meetings or what?
Committee meetings.
committee meetings.
I can't, okay.
I mean, I'm not a chairperson, but if they need volunteers out any of the meetings I'm in, I will run it if somebody shows me how. Sounds like it's not overly complicated or the bugs, so, I mean, I think we can make this work.
It's been working,
Yeah.
We haven't been doing committee meetings.
well, since October, but before that, we had virtual access to all of our meetings, all our committee meetings.
So, just to
For 2
interrupt or
years.
interject here, Jim and Tony, you're up. Is yours on the amendment or on the resolution itself?
I can wait till the resolution itself.
Okay, is yours on this amendment or on the resolution itself?
It's got a resolution.
Okay, so, do you have any comments on the proposed second amendment here, deleting? Let's do the delete. Chairperson or the chairperson and the county clerk, and replacing it with the IT department and or the department head or his or her designee. Any questions on that second amendment to the resolution? Sheriff, go ahead.
Yep, you can hold on. Yep. That's my majority vote. 14.
Now we're going back to the.
Now we're to the original resolution. Mr. Rudo, you wanna speak on that one?
I have one more question. And I'm not sure if if it applies to this resolution or not, or if there needs to be a separate policy developed in regards to this, but, and don't get me wrong, I am 100% for transparency. I think this is great. I think we need to do this. But my question is, what about, I mean, if we make this available, I mean, we need to have something in place that says people that are at work receiving, county pay, are not taking advantage of, taking away from their work time to listen to meetings.
That should be, was addressed in the personnel handbook, correct?
And what was the result of that?
There's a policy on that.
There is a policy
Yes.
already.
Has that gone through the county board? No, okay, so that's in the works, so that's coming.
Okay, all right. That's all.
Mr. Meyer,
In following up with what Tom said, but I do not believe at this time, if an employee is on, we don't have a way to monitor if an employee, if someone from this courthouse is on during work time. So even if it's in the handbook, my understanding is we don't have a way to monitor and track these computers as to where it's coming from within the courthouse. The other thing is anybody we discussed this at personnel, and I'm for the virtual meetings, loved them when we had them before, but now that I've been in personnel a little bit, I also feel it's my duty to sit on this board and look at things from another angle, not just what I want, but what's best for the county overall, not just a few individuals. Where's the liability for the county by adopting something like this? Because I sat here 2 years ago and listened to Andy Phillips say the last thing we wanted to do was go down this road. Now all of a sudden we're revisiting it. We got a resolution here tonight that's gonna be a hacked up mess by the time we're done with it, just so that we can get it through. Is that really the proper service to the county? I get it, we want virtual meetings, fine, but let's do it right. Has anybody consulted with legal, Von Briesen, anybody about doing this? You did?
I did.
Because I had some information that said, if you go down this road and you do an electronic meeting and something happens and the internet stops or anything, you have to suspend your meeting until you get it back up and going. Now, I'm not saying you're not right by putting
that's
these
in the
little
policy
caveats in here.
That's in the
Let
policy.
me finish.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're not right by putting these little caveats in here, and maybe you're 110% right. But I think the questions need to be asked, because you're asking department heads now. Clerk, that's fine. Coordinator, that's fine. But now you're asking department heads and committee chairs to take responsibility. What if they screw up and don't close in a closed session and come out and close out of that, the virtual? Who's gonna take the responsibility for that? I'm not taking it, I'm a chair. Where's it gonna stop if somebody decides to lawyer up and sue the county? I mean, that's gonna be a big one.
I mean,
There needs to be other things put in place here to protect us before we just adopt a resolution so we can say we have one.
the safe route would be not to do anything at any time, but at some point, there's the right and wrong factor. At some point, something needs to be done. And, I mean, I would love for personnel to modify this resolution, maybe next month, come back with some modifications and we can pass the modifications. That is perfectly fine with me,
Right,
because
then let's send it back to personnel.
I don't think that's the right decision.
Personnel looked at it once, and it voted down, did it not? For the reasons that I
They chose
just
not
kinda
to take
stated.
action, but I don't see any new actions coming out of this right now.
I think personnel committee's been pretty busy with the things that have been coming out of it, but I'm sorry,
Right,
but I
so
have to talk to the chair for not putting this on the top of the list.
So I was just trying to help personnel out.
Just to get it for you, direct your comments at the chair, I know it's good
I didn't
conversation.
start this tit for tat.
No, understood.
Mr.
But-
Patel,
I'm done.
The question I have, I guess, is actually gonna be addressed to the clerk. If this is all implemented, what extra burden, what extra help is needed by this clerk's office to handle this?
Well, they changed that to not I'm not that person anymore. So they made an amendment to change that, correct? Is that the way I see it?
That, just at the top.
So,
You did it for 2 years. What's gonna be different? We're gonna just
Ma'am?
start doing it again.
Please stop. I won't tell you again. Thank you.
so it doesn't put any more burden on me because it got switched to how it was.
Mr. Hauser?
I can see two problems here. One of them, maybe it's not a problem, but I have a question if it's, number one, is it gonna be ADA compliant? You have somebody that, supposedly wants to be on virtual because of handicap, and what if they're, they have to have sign language? Who's gonna do the signing? On virtual? That's a legitimate thing. They have a right to see it in sign language. Who's gonna do it? How are you gonna handle it? And the other thing I see is you're gonna involve every committee meeting, you're gonna start having a logistics problem. Because you might have more than one meeting at a time. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as, somebody with disabilities, I did talk to Bugs and he said that putting closed captioning on, the teleconferencing wasn't that hard of a thing to do. So I mean, if that's something we think we should put on there, I'm all in favor of that.
Any other comments?
Hold on, I'm trying to push my button here.
Can you amend again? Can you amend again?
You can amend this all the time.
Okay, so John is requesting to amend.
It's not letting me go.
It
No,
will,
just release.
currently right now.
So, back to 3D, so we struck out part of 3D. So it's required, and I'm all for it, I'm always for that. But it's requiring virtual access for all meetings, and I guess Rich, maybe you can help me word this. But sometimes you have like interview committee where you immediately go into closed session, so can we make an exception for closed session meetings? Like we're the only item on the agenda is a closed session, because others you have to log in virtually for literally a minute and then log out. Does that make any sense? So I'm not quite sure how to word that.
Ad hoc interview?
Well, I'd rather have it
Closed session.
an exception for if the meeting only has a closed session on the agenda, that meeting would not be virtual, because there would be really no point to even making it virtual.
Gary, I need to know about your,
I think we have to do.
Close out it.
Just the next one.
Where are we at?
So 3D is where I think we changed it. Yep.
Mr. Willingham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer your question, Mr. Undershoots, the agenda for such a meeting would be very clear that the only business that's going to be conducted is a motion to go into closed session and a motion to come out of closed session. And then if that committee is going to take action on business that was conducted in the closed session, then clearly it has to be an open session. So,
And therein lies the practical problem, is that if you go into closed session, the best practice would be to pick a specific time that you're gonna go back into open session. The problem is, you don't know if you go in and you think it's going to be half an hour, and then that's being 2 hours.
But that wouldn't be any different. You know, it seems to me that the virtual access process should as closely mirror the open meetings process as possible. So if a person from the public can be here in the room during the open portions of the meeting and leave during the closed portions of the meeting, we don't tell them what time to come back. We just, if they wanna be here for the rest of the open session, they stand out in the hall or, whatever. So it's, you know, to me, the public is asking for virtual access. They're going to have to handle the inconvenience of closed sessions. That's just a part of the process. They would handle it if they were here in the room, and handle it if they're at home on the phone or on the.
I'm not so much worried about that, is that then you have to set up a meeting where literally there's really no benefit to the public, and then somebody has to go through all the effort or the motion.
But you really don't know until you go through the closed session
Yeah.
that there's nothing that's gonna come out of that.
Yeah.
So, on generally every closed session, you are going to have,
I believe you're required to have a possible motion on the business of the closed session on the agenda.
correct, and in any event, you're going to have, you know, arguably a motion to adjourn.
I'll withdraw my motion.
You ready to vote?
No. Have to edit this.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Make a motion to table.
Hold on, we gotta get the floor first. Let me tell
I'm ready.
What is the motion?
No, there's no amendments on the table, it's just the.
Main motion.
Right, made motion as amended twice. So,
Vote on it now.
Hang on, John.
Can I make a motion to table this for next month?
Huh?
Can we make a motion to table this for next month, so the rest of us can kinda think this over, chew it through?
and it should be postponed to February 23rd at the 9 AM meeting,
Right.
if that's your motion.
Yeah, that's my motion.
That's your motion?
Or second.
So was that another one?
Yep.
John,
John Hitchman is going.
That ain't an amendment.
That's how she's doing it, but it's not.
Well, I don't have any other way to do it.
Understood.
So,
Okay, and new technology don't work.
I'm sorry.
Tony, how was the second then? Postpone till February,
February 23rd, yeah.
February 23rd? Any more discussion?
What's the motion?
It's a motion to postpone to the, February 23rd, 2023 meeting.
We gotta get Rich in it.
No, nobody else speak it, go ahead.
Okay. Ready to vote? So can we vote on it now?
Yes.
Oh, okay, you can vote then. Motion is to, postpone it till February 23rd day meeting. Passed by majority vote, 11 yes, 7 no.